Welcome back to St. Anne's Church, and we're continuing in our series on the murals on the ceiling. Just as a reminder, we'll go to the patio side, the west side of the church, starting from the altar end, and we've got St. Francis, St. Isaac Jogues, St. Athanasius, and St. Boniface. As we come to the Rawson Street side, last week we just finished with St. Patrick. The next in the series is Pope St. Leo the Great, or Pope St. Leo the First. So let's talk a little bit about Pope St. Leo the Great. So when we talk about Pope St. Leo, his pontificate was in the middle of the 5th century, the year 1440 to the year 461. And it was an era in both civilization and in the church where there was a lot of disturbances. In 450, the Byzantine Emperor Theodosius wrote a letter to Pope Leo and was the first to call him, as Bishop of Rome, the Patriarch of the West. And it's a title that's kind of come and gone for the Pope. One of the most important, or maybe most famous events of Pope Leo's papacy was in 452, when Attila the Hun was invading all kinds of places in Italy, and he actually went out to meet Attila the Hun before he sacked Rome, and was able to somehow convince Attila the Hun to not attack Rome. There's a legend that kind of goes along with the story of Pope Leo, is that when Leo approached Attila the Hun, St. Peter and St. Paul appeared behind him in glory and kind of scared Attila the Hun a little bit. So that might have been the reason with all of that. Sadly, though, later on, the Vandal king, Genseric, actually came and sacked Rome, but Leo was actually able to convince him to not raid the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran and the basilicas of Saints Peter and Paul. So while the city was captured, they were saved by that whole situation where they took refuge in those different buildings. There's a series of firsts that go with Pope Leo too. First, he was the first pope to be called St. Leo, or called Leo, I should say. He was also the first pope to be termed the Great, so St. Leo the Great. And he was the first pope from whom we have sermons that were captured in writing and passed down to us. He's one of the only 2 popes to be recognized as a doctor of the church, and he's the first pope that was ever buried in St. Peter's Basilica. So I look forward to our next in the series of the murals, and I'll see you next week.